At Christmas, chaos erupted. My sister threw a glass, then accused me of betraying her. I offered no apology, revealing her affair with her ex. You guys, I still can't believe what happened last Christmas. What started as a joyous baby announcement turned into absolute chaos when my sister Charlotte shattered a wine glass, screaming about betrayal, only for me to drop an even bigger bombshell right back at her. This wasn't just a family argument, it was a devastating explosion that changed everything. Okay, so let me back up a bit. My husband, Ryan, and I had been trying for a baby for 3 years. 3 long, heartbreaking years. And then last October, we finally saw those 2 lines. Pure, unadulterated elation. But it was also terrifying because just the year before, we'd lost a pregnancy to an early miscarriage. And that pain, it nearly broke us. My doctor assured us everything looked good, but she still advised us to wait until after 14 weeks to tell anyone, just to be safe. We decided Christmas was the perfect time. We'd be 16 weeks and our whole family would be together. I only told my brother, Ethan, and my cousin Megan. They knew about our loss. They'd checked in on me, and I trusted them completely. And they really did honor that trust. They kept our secret, bless them. Now, Charlotte, my older sister, is a different story. She's 34, has 5 kids, and fancies herself the ultimate pregnancy expert. A week before Christmas, she called me, fishing for news. She could tell something was up. I guess I'd been acting differently. I deflected, steering the conversation to her kids, and she eventually dropped it, but I could just feel her skepticism. Charlotte cannot, for the life of her, keep a secret. This isn't a new thing, either. Remember when I got into grad school? I was so excited I called her first. An hour later, she'd already spilled the beans to our mom, before I even had the chance. Or when Ryan proposed, I called her, sobbing happy tears, and she immediately posted it all over social media, tagging our entire family before I could even tell my best friends. My promotion? She announced it at Sunday dinner, before I even arrived. Her excuse? She just can't help but be excited for me. But I knew it wasn't about my excitement. It was about her being the first to know and then the first to tell. It was about having that knowledge and the tension that came with it. So this time, Ryan and I made a pact. Charlotte would be the absolute last to know. Christmas Day arrived, and after dinner, I stood up. My heart was pounding with excitement. I told everyone our due date was in May. The room erupted. Cheers, hugs, happy tears. Everyone, that is, except Charlotte. She just sat there, staring at me. And then she cried. Not happy tears. Oh no. These were angry, indignant tears. How long have you known? She demanded. 8 weeks, I replied. Just like that, her face fell. She stood up, and her voice rose to a shout. You had to tell me first, she shrieked. She accused me of betraying her, saying I'd always told her about her 5 pregnancies first, and that sisters are supposed to share everything. She said I made her look foolish. She even turned on Mom, who was trying to comfort her, demanding if she knew. When Mom said no, Charlotte whirled around. Then who knew? Megan and Ethan, still silent, suddenly became her next targets. She screamed at them for harboring secrets, claiming her own family was against her. My dad, bless his heart, tried to calm her down, telling her to relax and be happy for me. But Charlotte wouldn't have it. How can I be happy, she spat, when she deliberately excluded me from the most important news. She's ruined our relationship, and I'll never forgive her for making me the last to know. Then, she turned her rage on Ryan, accusing him of pitting me against her. Ryan, ever calm, just said, we just wanted to make sure everything was okay. Charlotte scoffed. That's foolish. I would have supported her no matter what. Now, I feel like she doesn't even consider me family. And then the ultimate irony. Real family tells each other everything, immediately. That was it. My brother Ethan, who usually stays quiet, finally spoke up. Maybe, Charlotte, he said, his voice flat, if you could just keep your mouth shut for once, people would tell you things. That sent her over the edge. She flung her wine glass across the room. It hit the wall with a sickening smash, sending shards everywhere. My 4-year-old nephew started wailing. My mom burst into tears. Charlotte's husband, Mark, tried to get her to leave, but she refused. "I'm not going until she apologizes for insulting me," she declared, pointing at me. I didn't apologize for keeping my announcement secret. I just couldn't. "You're a bad sister," she yelled, "and you've abandoned me." She started dramatically packing her Tupperware containers, telling her kids to get their jackets. She was making a huge show of it, stuffing her kitchenware into bags, when I finally spoke up. "You know what?" I said, my voice cutting through the noise. "If we're really sharing everything like real family, then everyone should know that Charlotte has been texting her ex-boyfriend, Daniel, for the past 8 months. The room went absolutely silent. Mark froze, a Tupperware lid falling from his hand. Charlotte's face drained of all color. You could have heard a pin drop. Nobody moved, nobody breathed. In 2 seconds, Mark's expression shifted from bewildered to deeply wounded. His lips parted, but no sound came out. Charlotte's hands trembled, her face stark white. She tried to speak, but only a choked gasp escaped. Mark, without a word, grabbed his coat from his chair and walked out. Just like that, Charlotte finally found her voice, a strangled, desperate sound. "It wasn't what you think. I didn't mean to." But it was too late. He was gone. We heard her cry his name in the driveway, chasing after him. Her 5 children sat at the table, bewildered and afraid. The youngest, the 4-year-old who'd cried over the glass, started wailing again. My mom rushed over, scooping him onto her lap, shushing him. The other 4 kids just stared at their plates, silent. My dad was slumped in his chair, transfixed, looking like he'd been hit by a truck. Megan, bless her, stood up and quietly started picking up the larger glass shards. Ethan just looked at me, eyes wide, saying nothing. Ryan, under the table, squeezed my hand. Outside, Charlotte was still shouting at Mark, pleading with him to wait, to let her explain. Then we heard a car door slam. An engine roared to life. Charlotte's anguished cries grew louder, then faded as the car sped away. The street went quiet, save for the muffled cries of the kids inside. Charlotte stumbled back in about 25 minutes later. Her mascara was streaked dark, her eyes red and swollen. She stood in the doorway, gasping like she'd just run a marathon. After surveying the room, she croaked. Mark drove off. "He's not answering my calls." She pulled out her phone and called him again, right in front of us. It went straight to voicemail. She tried to text, her hands shaking so hard she had to retype it several times. Then, she turned and fixed me with a gaze of pure hatred. "You," she shrieked, "you destroyed my marriage. You ruined my children's lives. All over a silly pregnancy announcement." She called me horrible, terrible, swore she'd never forgive me. Even when Mom tried to quiet her, Charlotte kept screaming, claiming I'd planned this whole thing, waited for the perfect moment to embarrass her. Ryan finally stood up. "She started it, Charlotte," he said firmly. "You attacked her." Charlotte implored him to stop, accusing him again of turning me against my family. By now, all the kids were sobbing, even the older ones. My 12-year-old nephew had his head buried on the table. My dad finally spoke. His voice was soft, but firm, cutting through the hysteria. "Charlotte," he said, "you need to take responsibility for your actions, instead of blaming your sister for exposing them. You texted Daniel, and you lied to Mark about it." Charlotte whirled on him, crying even louder, claiming nobody understood how terrible her life was. She slumped into a dining room chair, trembling, covering her face. Mom put a hand on her shoulder. Charlotte looked up, her eyes pleading. She admitted she'd been unhappy for years, felt trapped. 5 kids, a husband who worked constantly. She felt invisible. Texting Daniel, she explained, made her feel like herself again, like the person she was before marriage and kids took over. She swore she never planned to cheat, never physically did, but she knew it was wrong. Her eyes fixed on Mom. She apologized repeatedly. Mom, ever practical, told Charlotte to take the kids home. We all needed time to process this. Charlotte nodded, gathering her kids' jackets and shoes. Still shaking, she stuffed her Tupperware into bags. Her kids ignored her, the 12-year-old silently leading his younger brother by the hand to the door. Charlotte never even glanced at me as she left. She ushered her kids into her van and drove away. After they were gone, Megan got a broom and dustpan, quietly sweeping up the glass. Ethan and I cleaned the table in a heavy silence. Mom cried softly over the kitchen sink. Dad sat at the table, looking utterly blank. Ryan carried our plates to the kitchen. The house felt heavy, melancholy. Not Christmas at all. Ryan and I left an hour later. The drive home was silent at first. About halfway there, I just started bawling. I couldn't stop. All I could think about was how I wanted this to be a beautiful memory, announcing our baby, and it had turned into such a disaster. Ryan took my hand, still driving. He gently reminded me that Charlotte's choices weren't my fault. He pointed out that she'd attacked me first, thrown a glass, and had a complete meltdown because I hadn't immediately told her about my pregnancy. He said I had every right to protect myself after she hit me so hard. I knew he was right, but I still felt awful. I kept replaying Mark's face, his confusion, his heartbreak. I heard Charlotte's kids sobbing. We pulled into our driveway and Ryan turned off the car. I collapsed onto his shoulder, just weeping. He held me, whispering that we would be okay, the baby would be okay, and that was what mattered most. Inside, I took a long, hot shower, still crying. Ryan made tea, and we sat on the couch, half watching a movie we weren't really watching. The next morning, I checked my phone. 20 missed calls. From my parents, Ethan, Megan, even distant relatives. The longest text was from Mom, asking how I knew about Daniel, demanding I call her back immediately. I did. She answered on the first ring. I told her the whole story, how I'd seen the texts on Charlotte's phone a month ago when she'd asked me to check a message while she was driving. Daniel's name, the heart emojis. I'd opened it, curious, and found dozens of flirtatious, inappropriate messages stretching back months. I'd been carrying that knowledge around, unsure what to do. Mom groaned loudly. She wished I'd told her privately, not publicly. I retorted that I wished Charlotte hadn't screamed at me and smashed a glass for protecting my pregnancy announcement. Mom paused. She said she understood I was protecting myself, but my method had caused a lot of damage. Had she talked to Charlotte? Mom said Charlotte had called her hysterically around 3 a.m. Mark still wasn't answering her calls, and she didn't know where he'd gone. An hour later, Dad called me separately. He said he stood by me and Charlotte needed a serious wake-up call about her behavior. He acknowledged she'd been entitled and mistreating people for years, but he was worried about Mark and the kids. He wanted more details about Daniel. I told him I'd only seen flirtatious texts, didn't know the full extent, or if they'd ever met. Dad said Mark was probably trying to figure that out too. He hoped they could resolve it for the kids, but he wouldn't blame Mark if he couldn't. He said the whole mess was complicated, and holidays were supposed to bring families together, not tear them apart. Before hanging up, he urged me to take care of myself and the baby, and not let the stress ruin my pregnancy. Charlotte didn't respond for 4 days. I tried calling, but she didn't answer. Ethan called to say he'd driven by her house. Her van was there, but no one answered the door. Mom kept calling Charlotte, worried sick, but Charlotte only responded once, saying she was fine and needed space. On day 4, Mark finally answered Dad's texts. He told Dad he needed time to think and was staying with his brother Michael. Mark declined Dad's offer to talk. That afternoon, Michael called my dad. He wanted to know what had happened at Christmas because Mark wouldn't say a word. Dad explained everything. My pregnancy announcement, Charlotte's meltdown, the wine glass, Daniel. After Dad finished, Michael was silent for a long moment. Then, he said Mark had arrived at his house Thursday night, devastated, and had barely spoken since, just sitting on the sofa, staring at the TV. Michael asked Dad how serious the Daniel situation was. No one knew for sure, but Dad said Charlotte had admitted to messaging him for months. Michael warned that this could get ugly and hoped everyone was ready. For several days, my apartment became my refuge. Ryan went back to work on Monday, leaving me alone with my thoughts and my phone, which kept ringing. I ignored most of the calls. Tuesday night, Ethan, ever the intuitive one, came over with Chinese food, letting himself in with our spare key. He put the bags on the counter and started dishing out plates without even asking if I was hungry. I loved that he didn't overreact. He just opened containers and served fried rice like it was any other Tuesday. As we ate at the kitchen table, he told me Charlotte had started posting strange Facebook updates. He showed me his phone. One said, "Blood doesn't necessarily imply loyalty." Another was about people stabbing you in the back when you least expect it. Each post had family members asking what was going on, if she was okay. He scrolled further and showed me one where our aunt asked if it was about Christmas. Charlotte had replied with a sobbing emoji, saying certain family members had showed their true colors. Reading it made me nauseous. She was making herself out to be the victim, despite throwing a glass and screaming at me. Ethan put his phone down and urged me not to let it get to me. He said any rational person could see through Charlotte's charade. But I knew that wasn't true. Not everyone had been there that night. Wednesday afternoon, Megan texted me. Her mom had called that morning, wanting to discuss Christmas. Someone had given her a completely twisted story. According to Megan's mom, I had disclosed Charlotte's private business just to shame her, all because I was upset she didn't know about my pregnancy first. Megan's mom had asked her if that was really true. Megan had told her the truth, but she wasn't sure her mom believed her. Megan didn't know who was spreading that version, but it had to be someone from Charlotte's side. I wanted to hurl my phone across the room in anger. Charlotte was fabricating an entirely false narrative to make me look like a monster who had specifically gone after her. She wasn't telling anyone she'd flung a wine glass at the wall or had a complete meltdown at my pregnancy announcement. She wasn't saying she'd screamed at me and demanded an apology for simply safeguarding my own news. My text back to Megan just said, "I can't believe she's doing this." Megan replied, "Half the extended family probably believes you're the bad guy." Charlotte has always been good at playing the victim and generating sympathy. I knew that, yet it still infuriated me. Mom called Thursday morning. I almost didn't answer, but I knew she'd keep calling until I did. She asked about my health and the baby. I assured her nothing was physically wrong. Then she said she wanted a family gathering on Sunday. After a moment of silence, she advised everyone to sit down and discuss what occurred like adults. She explicitly invited Charlotte and Mark to attend. My stomach sank. Family conflict was the last thing I wanted, especially now. I advised my mom against it, saying I didn't need the stress. She said she understood, but we couldn't let this fester and pull the family apart. I retorted that Charlotte's lies were shattering things. Mom grumbled and said that's exactly why we needed to talk face to face. After I hung up, I told Ryan about it. While filling the dishwasher, he looked at me. He suggested maybe we should go so we could tell everyone our side of the story. I wasn't sure, but he warned that Charlotte would control the narrative if we didn't show up. He was right. I texted my mom we'd be there. Sunday came too quickly. I had a knotted stomach the whole drive to my parents' place with Ryan. We found Ethan on the couch when we entered. Megan arrived minutes later. Like every other family meeting, my dad was making coffee and spreading out cookies in the kitchen. Then Mark entered alone. He looked awful. His eyes were red, with dark circles under them, like he hadn't slept in days. When my mom asked where Charlotte was, Mark showed us a text. It said she wouldn't be in my presence and wouldn't talk to us. My dad shook his head, and murmured under his breath. We sat in the living room, an awkward silence hanging heavy. No one knew how to start. Finally, Mark spoke. He admitted he'd confronted Charlotte about Daniel when they got home on Christmas night. Her confession was complete. Mark's voice broke as he claimed they'd texted daily for 9 months. He said she confessed to having coffee with Daniel twice, once in September and again in early November. My mother covered her mouth, a gasp escaping. Mark continued. Charlotte swore they never touched, just talked. No kissing, no physical contact. But Mark didn't care. She'd been lying about an emotional affair for over a year. Ethan asked if she still insisted nothing physical happened. Mark just shrugged. I'm not sure what to trust anymore. He'd checked her phone records and found Daniel's number going back 10 or 11 months. He'd even found emails Charlotte had erased, but were still in her trash. Reading those emails, Mark said, felt terrible. Charlotte had been complaining about him to Daniel, saying she missed their old relationship. Dad asked what Mark would do. Mark was considering separation. He felt furious and betrayed every time he saw Charlotte. He couldn't stay in the house. He was staying with his brother, Michael, and had only just gone home after Charlotte took the kids to get more clothes. Mark looked directly at me and asked if anyone else in the family knew about Daniel before Christmas. Everyone but me said no. I admitted I'd known for about a month, after seeing the texts on her phone. Mark nodded slowly, thoughtfully. He said he didn't resent me. Despite the outcome, he thanked me for telling him. Mom spoke up. You know, she said, you could have handled it differently. She suggested I should have told Mark privately instead of publicly. My cheeks grew hot. Charlotte had been screaming, throwing things, demanding an apology. I was just reacting. I wasn't thinking about how to manage anything at that point. She'd spoiled my baby's announcement, and I defended myself. Dad stepped in to help. He stated that Charlotte's years of disrespecting boundaries and her decisions concerning Daniel caused this predicament, not me. I wasn't to blame for eventually confronting her, he added. My mom looked ready to argue, but she didn't. Ethan shifted the topic. He claimed it wasn't about the pregnancy announcement anymore. He advised Charlotte and Mark to resolve their marriage without involving US. Mark concurred. He said he would convince Charlotte they needed marital therapy to save their relationship. He indicated he needed professional therapy because the trust was so damaged. After everyone left, I was exhausted. I stared out the window as Ryan drove us home. That evening, I received a Facebook message from a lapsed friend, Nora Simmons. She was a family acquaintance who had known my parents for years. She wanted to reach out after hearing about Christmas. She'd had a similar experience with her sister 10 years earlier. Her sister had boundary issues and had shared Nora's intimate details with everyone. Nora said it took her years to learn to create and maintain limits. She said I could ask her for guidance. I messaged her back, and we ended up calling for almost an hour. She shared her successes, like being clear about what information was appropriate to convey. She said, you must occasionally accept that some family members won't change and protect yourself. I felt less alone after talking to Nora. She understood in a way that others don't. 2 weeks passed. Charlotte didn't contact me. I got updates from Mom and Ethan. Mark and Charlotte were in counseling. Mark had returned home, but was sleeping in separate rooms. Charlotte had blocked Daniel on everything and told him she was wrong and needed to focus on her marriage. I wasn't sure if Charlotte was truly speaking the truth. Then, Charlotte texted me on Wednesday afternoon. She wanted to talk in person alone. Reading that made my hands shake. I showed Ryan, and he immediately offered to come with me. I agreed. I wasn't ready to face Charlotte alone. I texted her back, proposing we meet at a coffee shop near our apartment. She agreed. We scheduled it for 10 a.m. Saturday morning. The night before Saturday, I hardly slept. Ryan and I arrived 15 minutes early at the coffee shop. We found a back corner table and I ordered a decaf coffee. When Charlotte arrived at 10 a.m., She looked terrible. Little makeup and untidy ponytail. Like Mark, she had dark bags under her eyes. She started crying almost immediately after sitting across from us. She said her life was falling apart. Mark barely looked at her, and her kids kept asking why Daddy was sleeping in the guest room. She couldn't eat or sleep and felt like she was losing her mind. Then she looked at me and stated, "Tossing that wine glass was improper." "No excuse," she said, "and I am so sorry." I said nothing. I just waited for her next words. Charlotte cried and claimed she'd been envious of me for years. She said I did everything so easily, my work, my schooling, my marriage to Ryan. Watching me excel at everything just made her feel stuck and miserable. This was unbelievable to me. Life had always seemed so good for Charlotte. 5 kids, a beautiful house, a hardworking husband. I had just gone through a heartbreaking loss after 3 years of trying to become pregnant. I truly thought she had it all figured out while I struggled. She told me she felt confined. All she did anymore was mommy. Though she adored her kids, she occasionally forgot who she was. She said watching me travel for business, go out with friends, and have hobbies made her feel like she was losing everything. She knew resenting me was terrible, but she couldn't help it. She dried her eyes with a tissue and stated texting Daniel reminded her of her youth and future. It was foolish, and she knew it wasn't genuine, but it felt wonderful to have someone ask about her day and care about her thoughts. Ryan clasped my hand under the table. Charlotte glanced at us and apologized again for tossing the glass. She apologized for spoiling my pregnancy announcement. She acknowledged her issue with seeking attention and always wanting to be first. She felt significant when she shared news first. She said her therapist was helping her understand why. She stated Mark had demanded therapy or he would leave. She claimed she'd had 4 individual sessions and couples counseling was starting next week. She was trying to change but struggling. I pondered everything for a moment. I told her I forgave her for Christmas. I explained I understood her struggles, but she needed to respect my boundaries now. I answered that meant not disclosing my personal news without permission. I said it meant not focusing on herself. Nodding, she replied she will try. She then asked me to undergo family therapy with her. Her therapist said it might help repair our relationship. I suggested taking time to work on ourselves independently first. She looked content with that reply. A couple more minutes of unimportant discussion followed. Ryan and I left. Before we did, Charlotte hugged me, more naturally and less performatively than her usual dramatic embraces. In the car, Ryan asked how I felt. I was cautiously optimistic, yet still hurt. I wanted to believe Charlotte was changing, but I'd heard promises before. He suggested taking it day by day and seeing what happened. I was exhausted, so I napped when we came home. A few days later, my dad called to say Mark had contacted him. Mark informed my dad that he and Charlotte were seeing Aaron Simmons for marriage therapy. Aaron specializes in affairs and trust issues, my dad stated. Mark had returned home, but was sleeping in the guest room. He told my dad he had conditions for staying. Charlotte must be honest with him about everything regarding Daniel. She needed individual therapy. She had to limit her phone and social media use. My dad said Mark looked committed to making the marriage work and to his expectations. According to my dad, I was delighted Mark didn't just ignore it. Charlotte needed genuine consequences. I saw my doctor 4 days following that talk. Ryan always accompanied me. The ultrasound tech measured everything and reported the baby was growing well. My doctor then tested my blood pressure. Everything looked good, she remarked. She inquired about my stress, and I said family drama was hard. She claimed my prior checkup revealed I was nervous, but this appointment showed the baby was okay. She urged me to take care of myself and not allow family issues to impact my health. The baby needs me to be calm and healthy, she explained. My vow was to try. Charlotte texted me that weekend. It was an image of a paper. Her therapist had given her homework. She had to record every time she crossed someone's boundaries and consider apologizing. I magnified the photo. My pregnancy announcement was first, but there were many others. She'd told my mom about Ethan's relationship before him. She'd written about Megan's new job before she disclosed it. She'd announced my cousin's engagement on the family chat. She'd notified others about my dad's health scare despite his request. The list continued. 15 instances on the first page. It wasn't only about me, I realized seeing it written down. Charlotte had done this to everyone for years. I texted her back that I appreciated her honesty. A heart emoji returned. A week later, my mom called a little nervously. Christmas was in a few weeks. She asked if we could meet without drama. I said I didn't know, but would try if everyone did. She recommended a casual meal instead of a formal one. Maybe just snacks and games at home. No frills, little pressure. I thought that was better than trying to recreate a holiday. She said she'd ask everyone whether they agreed. A few days later, she texted our family group, chat the plan. Everyone said it was okay. The next Saturday, Ethan and Megan helped us set up the nursery. Ryan had painted the walls the weekend before. Now we had to assemble furniture and organize baby things. Megan helped me fold tiny clothes while Ethan assembled the cot. She pulled out a onesie that read, Mommy's Little Miracle. She joked that my baby would hear all about our family dysfunction stories. I laughed because it was true. This kid would definitely hear about the Christmas when Aunt Charlotte tossed a wine glass. Ryan delivered pizza for lunch, which we ate on the floor among boxes. It felt so good to focus on the positive instead of the turmoil. We finished the crib and dresser that day. It was starting to resemble a nursery. On Tuesday, I got a mail notice. I checked the mailbox and discovered a letter from Charlotte. No return address, but I recognized her handwriting. As I walked upstairs, I opened it. It was 2 pages long. She said her therapist helped her compose it, but the words were hers. She apologized for stealing my moments. She mentioned my graduation, engagement, and promotion from years ago. She realized she did it because she felt invisible. She stated being the messenger made her feel needed. She considered it selfish and immoral. She stated she wounded me repeatedly and never apologized. She claimed she didn't want me to forgive or trust her instantly. She stated she wanted me to know she knew her mistake and why. She declared she would change, despite the difficulty. The letter was excuse-free. No, I'm sorry if I hurt you. Just straightforward accountability. Ryan saw it after I read it twice. He described it as actual advancement. Although I agreed, I was still waiting for the other shoe to drop. Christmas arrived unexpectedly fast. The week prior, my mom called to see if everyone still wanted a casual gathering. Yes, I asked if Charlotte would come. Charlotte confirmed her family's attendance and appeared thrilled, according to my mom. I was frightened, yet intrigued if the changes were permanent. Ryan reminded me we didn't have to remain if it was unpleasant. If Charlotte played her old self, we could go early. My dad texted me on Christmas Eve that he'd talked to Mark the night before. Mark said marital counseling was improving their communication for the first time in years. He stated Charlotte let him know everything on her phone. Daniel was blacklisted on all social media and chat applications. Before barring him, she emailed Daniel that she was foolish to talk to him and needed to restore her marriage. My dad claimed Mark appeared cautiously optimistic about a resolution. I replied back to ask if Charlotte would keep it up or if it was temporary. My dad claimed time would tell, but he'd never seen her accept responsibility. Ethan was setting up appetizers when we got to my parents' place at midday. Megan arrived with a homemade cheese board after us. Instead of tense silence like the previous Christmas, the atmosphere was calm. My parents set up board and card games on the coffee table. This wasn't about a nice meal or flawless decor, Mom said. Charlotte, Mark, and the kids arrived about 1 p.m. I saw her enter with a casserole and wrapped gift. She waved at me across the room. not the forceful embrace she typically gave, just a basic wave. She put her stuff down and joined Ryan and me by the fireplace. She inquired about my health and pregnancy. I replied, "The infant is healthy and fine." She smiled and said she was thrilled for us. Instead of dominating the conversation, she left to help my mom in the kitchen. Ryan lifted his eyebrows, as if he knew what I was thinking. It was different. Charlotte surprised me all afternoon. She let Ethan tell his humorous work anecdote instead of interrupting him. When Megan discussed considering a puppy, Charlotte asked questions rather than immediately providing advice. Charlotte didn't offer her 5 pregnancies worth of advice when my dad inquired how I was handling my pregnancy symptoms. She was present but not overbearing. She participated without leading. Charlotte smiled at jokes and appeared calm throughout a few rounds of cards. Her kids played with toys while she didn't hover or try to be a great mom. Mark was more relaxed than he'd been in months. He even grinned when Charlotte joked about her bad hand in cards. Before supper, Charlotte brought me a wrapped package from her luggage. She wanted me to have it for the baby. Opening it, I discovered a handmade baby blanket with stars and moons woven in. It was gorgeous and clearly time-consuming. I thanked her, and she said she'd been working on it in her leisure time for weeks. She didn't announce it or grab attention. She softly delivered it to me and appeared genuinely pleased when I replied, "It's beautiful." My mom took me into the kitchen as everyone cleaned up after supper. She hugged me and said, "Thank you for giving Charlotte another chance." She said she saw actual improvements in her daughter and valued having both children get along again. I assured my mom I was careful, but Charlotte did seem different today. My mom said she prayed for this and saw Charlotte working on herself, which gave her hope. I was hopeful too, but I needed to see if Charlotte could sustain it. Mom agreed and felt that was reasonable. To finish the night, we played games and spoke in the living room. Charlotte stayed until 8 p.m., then told her kids to go home for bed. She hugged everyone farewell, even me. A typical sister hug, not too lengthy or tight. She went with her family after telling me to text her if needed. Ethan came over and sought my opinion after they left. Charlotte's behavior was so strange that I didn't know what to believe. Maybe the Christmas catastrophe had really changed her, he remarked. Megan joined us and said she was amazed that Charlotte didn't promote herself all day. Ryan said it was progress, but caution was needed. I concurred. One nice day didn't erase years of boundary stomping, but it was a start. The first week of January, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Something compelled me to answer. It was Charlotte. She said she was calling from her therapist's office because Aaron wanted me to attend one of their sessions. He felt a specialist might help us discuss our relationship concerns. I felt sick thinking about sitting in therapy with Charlotte, but then I thought of my child and how I wanted them to know their aunt and cousins. I asked Charlotte if she wanted this, or if Aaron was making her. She said she wanted to try because she missed me as her sister. I told her I needed to consider it and consult Ryan. She replied that was okay and to inform her. Ryan at work was my first call after hanging up. He indicated it was my decision, but he believed a neutral person would keep the conversation fruitful. Megan told me the same thing that night. Ethan indicated he'd back my decision. After 2 days of deliberation, I texted Charlotte that I'd attend one session. After thanking me, she stated Aaron's office would call me to schedule. 4 days later, I found the appropriate number in a modest office building. Charlotte was nervously waiting in the waiting area. I sat across from her after a feeble grin. Neither of us spoke while waiting. A 40-year-old man with spectacles emerged from a door. Aaron introduced himself and shook my hand. He walked us into his office and put us on opposing couches. Aaron thanked me for coming from a chair facing us. He stated, "Today is about opening communication and making sure we both feel heard." He asked me to describe how Charlotte's actions throughout the years had affected me. I inhaled and claimed it made me doubt her with my most vital matters. Every time I did well, she had to tell everyone first. It made my successes seem like hers. The pregnancy announcement was the final straw because I'd lost one child and needed to safeguard this one. Erin nodded and asked Charlotte if she understood. Charlotte agreed despite her tears. She stated she was too focused on how being the messenger made her feel important to consider how her actions affected me. Erin urged her to elaborate. Charlotte confessed she often felt invisible throughout her life. Despite having 5 children and a spouse, she felt adrift. She felt important when she shared others' news. Now, she recognized it was selfish and immoral. Hearing her say this made me emotional. Erin inquired how I felt hearing Charlotte's explanation. Though it helped me comprehend her actions, it didn't alleviate the anguish. Charlotte nodded and stated she wasn't asking me to forget everything. She wanted a chance to improve. Erin suggested starting there and asked if we were willing to re-establish trust. Both agreed. I practiced conversing without patterns with Erin in therapy and with Charlotte over coffee for the following few weeks. She tried hard to listen instead of waiting to speak. Ryan noticed a change in her behavior around me. I felt the baby move and my tummy grew every day. I received a morning text from Charlotte wanting to visit that afternoon. I agreed, and she arrived at 2 with containers. She delivered frozen food she made all morning, casseroles, soups, and spaghetti with cooking instructions. She wanted to help once the baby was born and thought ready-made dinners would help. She did it without being asked, which astonished and touched me. I told her I wasn't sure what else I needed because this was new to me. She stated to contact her anytime and didn't expect to be in the delivery room. Her goal was to help however I was comfortable. I thanked her, and she departed after 30 minutes. Ryan returned from work to find all the food frozen. He stated Charlotte worked hard, and it showed. 2 weeks later, on a Tuesday night, I felt strange cramps on the sofa while watching TV. I stood up and water ran down my legs. My water broke, right there in the living room. Ryan came hurrying from the bedroom when I called. He assisted me to the car with the hospital bag we'd packed weeks before. As the contractions got harder on the drive, I breathed through them as in birthing class. Ryan contacted my parents from the car to say we were going to the hospital. My mom inquired if she should inform Charlotte. Even though we weren't as close anymore, I wanted her to know. She was my sister. Ryan dropped me off at the emergency door and went to park while a nurse wheeled me in. They put me in a room for labor and delivery. I was 5 centimeters when the doctor checked me. I wanted an epidural. The contractions were becoming harder. After the anesthesiologist inserted the needle, the agony subsided after 20 minutes. Ryan waited with me, holding my hand. My parents arrived about 10 p.m. and sat with us. My mom told me I was doing well, and my dad seemed anxious. Long hours of labor followed. I was fatigued and wanted it to end. After monitoring my progress, the doctor indicated I was ready to push. At 8 the next morning, Ryan guided my pushes from beside me. After what seemed like forever, I heard sobbing, and the doctor stated it was a girl. Her placement on my chest was perfect, small and pink, with thick dark hair. Ryan and I cried because she was finally here. Nurses washed and weighed her. 8 pounds, 1 ounce. I gazed at her face as they returned her, covered in a blanket. My parents met their grandchild first. My mom sobbed and hugged her as my dad snapped 100 photos. They left after an hour to recover. Next came Ethan and Megan with flowers and a cuddly giraffe. Megan held the infant and praised her. Ethan, initially afraid, held her and grinned the whole time. About 30 minutes later, they departed. Charlotte and Mark arrived last with a large gift bag. She approached my bed and requested to hold her niece. I agreed and gently handed her the baby. Charlotte's face melted as she stared down. She muttered that she was lovely. As tears fell from her cheeks, she said I would be a great mom. She gave the baby back after 20 minutes and told us to rest. I liked how she handled leaving with Mark. She followed limits without being reminded. My first weeks back home were harder than I'd imagined. The baby wailed constantly, so I barely slept. Ryan did his best, but he had to return to work after 3 weeks. Charlotte texted every couple of days to check in. She volunteered to deliver groceries or keep the baby so I could snooze. She didn't just appear. She came over after I said yes. I texted her one afternoon to hold the baby for an hour since I was too weary to think. She arrived in 15 minutes. She rocked the baby downstairs while I slept upstairs. I felt much better that morning. She folded my clothing and did my dishes. Her response to my thanks was, "That's what sisters do." It felt strange. She helped because I asked, not for credit. The pediatrician reported the infant was healthy and gaining weight at 2 months. She stated I was a good first-time mom. Ryan and I were establishing a routine. We knew her screams and feeding and sleeping times. Family support made it simpler. My mom visited weekly to relieve me. Sometimes Ethan brought dinner. Charlotte checked in often, but never insisted on coming over if I was busy. The family was more courteous and supportive than usual. When the infant was 12 weeks old, Charlotte and I had coffee. We sat outdoors at my neighborhood cafe. Therapy was helping her understand herself, she said. She realized she lost herself in becoming a wife and mother. She'd started Saturday morning community center art lessons. Her book group met twice a month. She was finding happiness beyond her family. She appeared lighter, less needy for approval. I truly admired her effort. My dad informed Ryan one night that Mark said their marriage was better than in years. Mark stated he and Charlotte were finally honest. No longer were they just acting. The Daniel situation prompted them to face long-ignored issues. Mark was glad they could repair instead of letting everything fall apart. Charlotte was honest about her phone and schedule. She was trying to reassure Mark. It worked. Everyone came for supper on the baby's 4-month birthday. Simple pizza with salad. My parents, Ethan, Megan, and Charlotte's family came. Adults spoke while kids played in the backyard. Charlotte arranged the table and kept the youngsters calm. She congratulated Megan on her hairstyle and questioned Ethan about work. She wasn't self-centered. She seemed genuinely interested in others. She played with the baby, but gave her back when she fussed instead of trying to quiet her. Without conflict, everyone got along. Never before had our family reunion seemed so tranquil. After everyone departed, I rocked the baby in the nursery. She almost fell asleep in my arms. I remembered how awful that Christmas was. The yelling, the shattered glass, and the damaged sentiments had led to actual change. With support, Charlotte restored her marriage. We improved communication. All started respecting limits. The family was healthier than in years. I was glad my child would see her aunt as a person who was growing and improving, not as someone who needed to be the focus of attention. I was glad we got here, even if it was messy and terrible. I put the sleeping infant in the crib. It was finally truly peaceful.